this was really good. Thank you so much. This is very neat.
Good morning, Dreamer.
Good morning.
I am so happy to have you. I've been looking forward to this so much.
Me too.
Okay. Tell us 2 or 3 things about yourself before we hear your dream.
So I work in communications and social media. I'm married. I've been married a little over a year now to my husband, Alex. And we have a dog named Pearl, who is 16. And then, yeah, I am just kind of passionate about any kind of creative work.
Fantastic. Okay. Please tell me your dream.
So my father in the dream was on trial with 2 other men. I don't know who the other men were. They were just 2 unidentified men. They were in an open courtyard inside of a medieval stone castle, and they all had nooses around their necks. All of my immediate family was there, including spouses. So Alex, my husband, and then my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law. I was so anxious that I decided I couldn't watch, so I left. The next part, I'm still in the castle, but I'm walking down the corridor. I'm not sure why, but I decided to climb up this small ladder built into the stone wall. It just led to the ceiling, and it was like I was rock climbing. And then I saw some people I know coming down the corridor. I can't remember who they were. I just remember recognizing them from school or something. I didn't tell them what was going on with my dad. We just made small talk and then they left. A little bit later, I met back up with my family. I saw my dad was with them and I saw that he was okay. I felt relieved, like the stress had been lifted. Then some sort of bad guys, like a group of bad guys, showed up at the castle and we had to run away from them. While this was happening, I got separated from my family. I found a window and climbed out of it and onto the roof of the castle. It was very high up and I was nervous as I climbed higher and higher. Then I got stuck and couldn't climb back. Any possible route seemed too dangerous and too scary. It was like I was frozen in fear. I was able to sort of wake myself up at that point, I think just because I was so afraid. I told myself that I was not actually stuck and I was somewhere safe, and then I woke up in my bed. And that's it.
Oh, that's got a lot of energy in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. When did you have this dream?
It was in March of this year.
Okay. So let's start like we start so often. Let's start with the setting. And the setting of the dream sounds like it's a castle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you said it was like from medieval times or the Middle Ages or.
Yeah, it was all stone. It had that big courtyard that was kind of like open and outside, but surrounded by the stone walls. And then, yeah, in the hallway, it was stone floor, stone walls. It was just very medieval. And yeah, whenever I was on the roof, it was like the same thing, well, it was almost like it wasn't like a flat roof like you would think of a castle. It was like pointed.
Okay. What do you make of your dream choosing this as the setting for the entire dream?
I don't know. It's almost it felt like intense. It felt like a very serious sort of place, but it also was like we were staying there. Like
Uh-huh.
yeah, we were staying the night there, like a vacation place, but there were tons of other people there.
Okay. Okay. Did did the did it feel like the castle was medieval? It was historic. Did you feel like you were in those times or present day just staying at a castle?
It was like present day staying at the castle.
Okay, all right. But this has got just such a really interesting call to the past, or call to some ancient time, or it's got that kind of, I don't know, but pointing to that. What's interesting about medieval times is that we also call that Middle Ages. Now, I don't think you're quite approaching middle age. However, we need to sort of bear that in mind. Also, it's a castle. It's not a historic inn. It's not, it's not a present day hotel. It's a castle.
Right.
Any ideas about what is a castle?
So the energy it had, it was almost like when you watch like period dramas.
Yes.
There's like the court. Like there's like a community, a whole community living in this massive castle. And what just came to mind too was like, as a kid, I watched a lot of Disney movies. I watched a lot of like
Sure.
Disney princess movies. So it's like it has that kind of energy for me too, I guess.
So sort of fairy tale
A little bit, yeah.
energy. Okay.
Yeah. But it felt more realistic.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I'll put a question mark by that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Disney princess does kind of suggest fairy tale. I'll weigh in here just a wee bit. It is interesting you mentioned community, because at some point in the dream, your whole family is there, or many members of your family are there. And so also some other familiar people seem to be there that you sort of have a brief kind of encounter with, small talk encounter with. And so we think about this as a place in one's own psyche. And what's interesting about castles is they're very well defended. They are surrounded by a moat. They have giant stone walls. They usually have places around the perimeter where you can defend against attackers. It's a well-defended structure, unlike just say an historic inn by the side of the road, or something, or Airbnb somewhere. Also, we don't have so many castles here in the United States. This suggests maybe a foreign place.
Yeah.
I immediately go to thinking about the great castles of Europe and England, and so that's a couple of ideas that I have, and I'll just jot those down in another color.
Okay.
So castles are well defended, and there's something about this that suggests it's foreign, meaning in psychological terms, it's sort of far away from consciousness, like that. Okay. But also this idea of being defended brings up the idea of that I've talked about before in some of my videos about ego really hates change. And so ego defends against any new consciousness, if you will. And what better way for ego to do that is than to hole up in a castle. And but what's interesting about this dream, and by the way, this courtyard, what's really interesting about a courtyard, it's an inner place.
Yeah.
So it's surrounded by the great walls of the castle. And so again, here's an inner place in psyche. Oh, and yet we can't stop some stuff going on in psyche. This whole business about dad being on trial. Okay. Any other ideas around this as the setting before we move to what's happening?
I don't think so. I mean, there was when you said like the great castles of Europe, I went to on like a senior trip to like
Yeah.
Scotland, Wales, England, and we saw some really cool castles. So
Yeah.
it was a totally unfamiliar place to see my family. I've never been there
Mhm.
with my family, but there is some familiarity there where I have at least been inside of one. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what a great trip that sounds
It
like.
was
I'd love to do
amazing.
that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we are in this inner place in Psyche,
Mhm.
and father is on trial. Now, dreamer, we could spend the rest of forever unpacking father,
Yeah.
personal father, archetypal father, meaning kind of the idea of father, relationship with father. It is entirely up to you to tell me what you feel like telling me about either him personally or the idea of father.
A little bit about my own father. He's super hardworking. He can be a bit tightly wound. He has a way, if that makes sense. He has his own way, and he always has a plan. But whenever he is like around his family or people he's close with, he does let loose a little bit. And whenever I was a kid, he was always super funny. I just remember him being very, very funny. And as for like the idea of father in general,
Yeah.
I think it carries a lot of authority in my mind.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you say a word or two, up to you, of how your father or how the idea of authority functions in your own work, day to day, anything like that?
I've said this before. I feel like I don't want anybody to be in charge of me, but I also don't want to be in charge of anybody. I just want to be doing my
Yep.
own thing. And so that like any kind of like authority figure, I get a little uncomfortable and a little uneasy sometimes when it comes to authority figures.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. What's interesting about the picture that the dream presents is that wherever we are here, it's
Mm-hmm.
on trial.
Mm-hmm.
It's being judged, or it's on, right, it's on trial. Now let me see how I can put this in this same picture. We may need another piece of paper for this, because this is really important. In fact,
Right.
we're just going to do that.
Okay.
This is so important. On trial. Okay. Now, here's why this is important. This has to do with, again, something around judgment,
Right.
something about looking at evidence and passing judgment. Can I say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what I mean by that is, and what I'm guessing about this, and you get to decide, is that at some point in our lives, usually in young adulthood, we do have to look at the values that our parents gave us, not just our parents, but our culture gave us, or our religious upbringing gave us. And we have to put it, if you will, on trial
Mm-hmm.
and decide for ourselves, is this my value? Is this how I'm going to live my life? Some of the values that our parents passed down to us are not as useful as others. And it may be that at least a couple of those things that they passed to us, we decide, no, against. I'm against that, or I'm not going to live my life that way. So,
Mhm.
and it's not putting them as human beings or personally on trial. It's more the idea of, you know, how they think, what their values are, how they've done things, and our decision for ourselves, not to just swallow all that whole and
Mhm.
just do it the way mama did it, do it the way dad did it, but to decide for ourselves. And this is absolutely normal for people to do in their 20s and 30s. I'm wondering if that's what this is about somehow.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And it's not easy. And that is, you know, shows in the dream, in the horror of it, the intensity of it, and the not wanting to look at it,
Mhm.
you know, the turning away from it. It's hard to question our parents' values because it feels like we're rejecting them personally, but we're not. And that's a tricky place to be. We love them, we are in relationship with them, but we're not going to do it the same way they did it. Sometimes they take it as a rejection of them, but it's not. So, I mean, this is that's deep stuff. I don't know if that's
Yeah, and it's crazy that like I had this dream back in March, and just recently, like in the past month, I've had conversations similar with my mom about like it's weird still being in the same place that I grew up,
yeah,
since living in this, like whenever I was growing up, it was never, and that was never part of the plan, but we've just kind of ended up here for the time being, and it's great. I was like, I love my parents. I don't want to be my parents.
yeah, yes,
Oh.
yes, yes. Okay. All right. Now, so that's one thing we need to look at, but also there's another thing. I'm going to go back because there are two more men involved here.
Yeah.
Uh, and so on another level, this has to do also with that a part of a woman's psyche that has to do with masculine energies. Again, I've talked about this on some of the videos. The masculine aspect within a woman's psyche has to do with her ability to get stuff done in the world, to pursue a career, to decide on a project or a goal and make the plan to achieve that goal and execute that plan, and also to maintain good boundaries. This is all necessary. And the good father, so to speak, I'm speaking in large terms here, teaches his daughters how to do all of that. I mean, by either teaching them overtly or just by example. And here he is, this hardworking man, and with a plan. He's got a plan.
You've got a
And,
plan.
yeah. And so on another level, this is also some sort of comment on your own masculine energies, and they are on trial.
Mhm.
Uh, and, you know, from time to time, we do need to look at that within ourselves. How balanced are we with that masculine energy? If we don't have enough, then we're not going to get anything done and we're not going to be able to hold good boundaries. If we have too much, however, then we come across as too overbearing, too judgmental, too opinionated, even bossy, and frankly, kind of bitchy, you know. So the idea is to have a good balance so that this masculine energy can serve us, but not go so far as that we are putting off the people in our lives. And to put that on trial means to decide, okay, where is that? Where is my masculine energy? Do I have enough? Do I have too much? Where? You know. So
Yeah.
that's another idea around this to maybe look at. I'll tell you what I love about this though is we can approach it with a sense of humor
Mm-hmm.
because he's got that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How are we doing so far?
Good. Good.
Okay. All right. So just to make a note here on our work, this is something about putting values on trial, something about putting masculine attributes on trial, just weighing out and looking at the evidence of these things. Okay. And I think the dream is that sort of picturing that you want to look aside. You don't want to quite look at it. You, you know, that's ego not wanting to participate in this. Okay. All right. Now, so you leave that courtyard area. Is that right at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And go down the corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's before we leave this place, let's take note though of all the other people there.
Yes.
There are, so it's family
Mm-hmm.
and others, and including the in-laws.
So yeah, so we're a family of 5. So it's my mom, my dad, then those 2 other men, and then my brother and my sister, and my brother's wife, my sister's husband, and my husband.
Okay.
And I can't remember if there was anybody else, but I almost feel like it was like a crowded courtyard of everybody's watching.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one way to think about this is we actually do carry these folks around in our heads. Like we carry them around in our heads. We have a relationship with them in waking life, of course, but there's something about them that we carry around in our heads as well. And so they populate our psyche.
Mm-hmm.
They populate our psyche, all these folks. And each one of them can be taken apart and looked at for the attributes that they have, or the impact that they have on you, or the state of the relationship you have with them is what we're looking at. So I don't want to miss that these are parts of you that are witnessing what's happening, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Just make that note here. All right. Now we're ready to go to the corridor.
All right.
All right. Now, as you know, I'm a notoriously bad speller. So, corridor. That right?
I think so. I think that's right.
Okay.
I'm not great at spelling either.
Okay. And you said the corridor was like goes along with the rest of the castle. It's stone, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it narrow? Is it
It's large. It's wide.
large?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, large, wide. Great. Okay. And is there light coming in?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember seeing like any specific windows, but it's not like gloomy or dark.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, when we have a place that is large, wide, light, then again, this has to do with a place in psyche that is more expansive.
Mm-hmm.
You, you know, that is brighter, if you will, pointing toward consciousness. So that's lovely. And the corridor in the dream, do you have a sense of where it's going? Like
not specifically, just the rest of the castle. Like it's
mm-hmm.
just kind of just like a hallway, but just a giant castle hallway.
Okay. So here's the thing about hallways and corridors.
Mm-hmm.
They are transition spaces.
Mm-hmm.
They are inviting us to move psychologically from one point to another. Mm-hmm. They're inviting again more consciousness. You know, they're inviting us to a kind of change. It's a transition. It's a liminal space, an in-between space, in between this and that. And to be moving down that hallway just signals, I think, some movement in the psyche, if you will. So I wanted to make note of that since it was such a standout feature. Okay. Okay. Then you climb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is very interesting because that whole element, the climbing,
Uh-huh.
in both, like it happened twice in this dream,
Right.
is
Right.
recurring. It happens often in my dreams, like
Okay.
climbing up stairs and then getting stuck and then feeling that fear of heights.
This is my version of wiggling around, jumping around. Okay. Oh, okay. So let us note this is a recurring theme.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about recurring themes just for a second. A recurring theme in dreams, or even a dream that repeats like exact verbatim, it is, if you will, the psyche's way of saying, this is a message you need to get, and I will give it to you this way. The psyche is saying to the waking life ego, I will give it to you that way. I will try again with some other imagery, but this is terribly important. This climbing and getting stuck business is very important and needs to be looked at. Okay. To climb, right, means to go up. What are your ideas about this? Do you have some feeling about it or some clues about it?
A little bit. I've
Okay.
thought about it a lot because
Okay.
the feeling that I get reminds me of if you've been to like water parks and you climb up all of those stairs to get to the top of the slide. Every single time, because I have a little bit of a fear of heights, but every
Okay.
single time I'll have that like uneasiness in my chest and in my stomach, and it's like it's so similar. And that's the exact same feeling I have in these dreams whenever this happens.
Okay. Now, when you go to the water park, though, and you climb to the top of the slide and you have that kind of funny feeling, but you do come down the slide, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you would not do it again.
Right. Yes. Like a thrill. But yeah, I don't know. So I guess it's thrilling too, in a way.
Okay. Okay. We're just going to make note of that. Okay. So here's what I'll ask about this. There's a couple of things about going up in a dream, whether it's climbing a ladder, climbing stairs, climbing the stone ladder in a castle. But the idea of going up, there are lots of ways to look at it. Going up usually means moving toward consciousness. Going up sometimes signals something in the spiritual realm to go up. Sometimes it signals the need to get a new perspective, to climb up high somewhere gives us a new perspective that we can see things in a broader kind of way. To climb also is sometimes has to do with this achievement oriented idea that goes along with what we talked about with masculine energies of setting our plans and working to achieve our plans, climbing the ladder of success or things like that. The danger is on the other side is if we climb too high too fast, it can signal a kind of what we call inflation In other words, too high. And have you ever heard the term building castles in the air? You ever
No.
heard that?
Mm-mm.
It's a real old-fashioned term. And what it means is allowing one's fantasy life about whatever to blow up in such a way that you kind of get lost in it. And it's a kind of inflation. Building castles in the air means not, your feet are not on the ground. It's not realistic. It's without support. It's an interesting turn of phrase. This dream sort of reminds me of that somehow. Might look at number one, is there some place, and you can think about this, you don't have to answer it right this minute, but is there some place where you've gone too high and now you're stuck? Or is there anything in your life where you feel stuck, like for any reason, just stuck? Because that you use that word a couple of times in the telling of the dream, of feeling stuck. So I don't know, is there, can you think of anything like that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. We got it. Okay, there it is. Great.
Yeah, is it okay? I might not go into it, but I have it in my head.
Perfect. And I hasten to assure those folks who are watching this video that when we do this kind of work, it is absolutely the dreamer's prerogative on commenting or not commenting on any of these elements. And we get to say, if the dreamer's got it, great. We move on. Okay. And okay, so the next part is Dad's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's do this. So Dad has withstood the trial and apparently been found not guilty.
I was so scared in the dream that he was going to die. And it was like,
yes,
part of what I was like, I can't watch. I have got to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when I saw him, it was just relief.
So I'm going to make a couple of comments here about in our dreams when our parents die. I have heard dreams, especially from teenagers, that are approaching, for instance, high school graduation and going away to school, that they dream from time to time some sort of very, very frightening dream in which one or both parents die or disappear, sometimes really grisly dreams.
Yeah, I told you about the one that I had with the bear. My mom got eaten by a bear.
Yes. And in a way, those dreams are preparing us, psychologically speaking, for when our parents have less influence over us. In other words, in a way, their influence over us as children dies or needs to, and a new relationship is started with them in a new way as an adult. So in a way, they have to die as they are in order to establish an adult relationship with our parents. And so as frightening as it is to dream of the death of a parent, sometimes it is part and parcel of appropriate development, appropriate psychological development. Now, in this instance, though, what we said before was a value examination, a trial of values. And it sounds like overall, Father's values, they pass muster. So he is not guilty, and those values do not need to die, or something along those lines. it may still be calling for some realignment of the relationship. And this will happen throughout the lifetime. I mean, you know, our relationship with our parents changes over time. You know, and this is under normal circumstances. When we marry, when we start having children, the whole thing shifts again. When they start to age, the whole thing shifts again. So we renegotiate our relationships with our parents throughout the lifetime. Okay. All right. Okay. How are we doing?
Good.
Okay. All right. Now, though, Dad's okay, but there is bad guys show up.
Yeah, and I don't know how to describe them exactly. It's just a group of just bad guys. I don't know. Like whenever you think of bad guys, it's just like, I guess, antagonists in some way. And yeah, we had to run away.
How many bad guys?
A lot, I think. I think it was like, yeah, it was just like a big group, almost like an army or like a group of guards. So kind of going back into the medieval theme.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Now, thinking again about the masculine aspect, and these guys looked kind of like this, army guys. Okay. And it feels bad. They feel like they're not on your side.
Right.
And yet I will make the case, like I often have, is that there is something energetic in these bad guys. And it may be that ego gets it wrong, that they're actually bringing you something that you need. But it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah. And then run away again.
And there's the running away, which echoes the first part of the dream where you turn away from Dad.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now it's running away from this. And again, this is really big masculine energy.
That's so interesting. Can I?
Yeah.
It's the same like thing. Like I see something I see the masculine, right? So like you have like the army and the guards, and then my dad and the two other men on trial. And then I run away or I turn away and I leave. And then I go and find something.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Now, what's really interesting about that is because this repeats, it echoes, but it echoes bigger. It's like, okay, she didn't get it with her dad. We're going to send an army.
Yeah.
We're going to send the army now. And I wonder if all of this climbing, I wonder if it is some attempt to get perspective, to get some kind of perspective. Because this time you climb even higher, like on the top of the whole structure.
Yeah.
Trying to get some. Now, here's the deal. A moment ago, you could think of a place where you're stuck. This is the very energy you need to get unstuck. I mean, these guys will get you unstuck.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is, and this is the work for you, is to figure out what makes these guys so scary. What piece of masculine energy is so off-putting as to be frightening to the ego? For instance, we think of this kind of masculine energy as very aggressive. Very aggressive. But since our dreams speak in hyperbole, it may mean that what is called for is not necessarily great aggression, but what is called for is some level of assertiveness.
That's the word I was thinking too, assertiveness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great.
I think too, like the fact that they're like bad guys is like, I'm so scared I'm gonna hurt somebody or be, or hurt somebody's feelings or make other people feel negatively.
That's exactly what I'm thinking too. Yeah. If I'm assertive, is that bad? Will it hurt someone, or will it be negative, or somebody think negatively of me? You know, this is the fine line that we walk between. And I'm going to sound very sexist here, but I think I really think women really, really struggle with this. Well, you know, like I said before, too much masculine energy makes us look like bossy, bitchy, too much negative, but not enough of this. We can't get stuff done. We get stuck.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think this is an echo of part 1 of the dream, but it's just louder.
Yeah.
It's got more of this in it, and it's got more of this in it. Also, the idea of climbing higher, also this idea of rising above, you know? And I better put this in another color because I'm talking about it. To climb higher means to rise, or may suggest to rise above, but maybe sometimes we're called to stay on the ground and fight the fight, or you know, do what encounter this in some way, and not climb so high that we feel stuck and we can't do anything, but instead we stay on the ground. How does that sound?
I think so. I think I would need to think about it a little bit more, but yeah, that does make sense.
Or escape the whole business.
Right. Like the scary situation, whatever it is, of me being scared to be assertive or hurt people's feelings, instead of just like avoiding, working through it and getting through it.
There it is. Yeah. So it's a kind of avoiding.
Yeah.
This is, dreamer, this is good stuff. Do you think? I mean,
I absolutely think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Do you feel like we really got somewhere here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is very, very interesting.
Wiggling. Okay. All right. Now, to that end, this is a wonderful dream. Oh, you had the dream back in March.
Yes.
Does the timing of that dream mean anything to you? Were you grappling with something at that particular time, or in the 2 or 3 weeks prior, or we're about to have to grapple with something? Does that play into this at all?
I think so. I think this whole year I have taken on more things, which I love. I love what I do. I love everything that I've been working on. It has been, so that has been on my mind, is like I'm having to use some masculine energy to get things done, to actually to really practice time management. And so I guess it's just maybe this year.
Okay.
It's significant around timing wise. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, do you have any ideas around how to honor this dream?
I love the idea of getting art that reflects like elements. And there's so many cool ones. I mean, I could do a castle, or I guess a castle, like a painting of a castle, which would be cool. I think I could find one that looks really cool. And then also trying to be more assertive.
So get real conscious.
Yeah. And I think that just for me, that means like, I'm not the most assertive person in the world. So I think that just means like honoring myself and what I need and want in
Oh,
every interactions. Does that make sense?
music to my ears. Yeah.
So,
May I offer a suggestion?
yes.
Okay. And in doing so, I'm going to tell you a super quick story.
Okay.
So years ago, when I was in graduate school, I had a classmate, and she was much younger than I was. I was a middle-aged graduate student. She was in her early 20s, or yeah, she was in her mid-20s. And she and I were having coffee one day, and she was complaining about not being able to finish this major project, this big paper that we had to write. And she was really struggling with just making herself sit down and do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me this dream. She knew I was interested in dreams. And she told me this great dream that she had. In her dream, she was in the middle of World War II in Europe. And she was like with Patton's tank army. You know, Patton's army was he led tank troops across Europe during World War II after the invasion at Normandy. And she was part of that. She was like fighting with soldiers, with American soldiers. I asked her, I said, all right, well, tell me about that. Well, she loved old World War II movies, which I do too. So I got that. I said, all right, well, tell me about American soldiers in World War II. And she said, well, they are heroes. They saved the world. They got, they took back Europe, all these wonderful attributes that she gave to the soldiers in World War II, and how they, you know, took ground, conquered the evil Nazis and all of that. And I said, all right, that is exactly the energy you need to sit down and do this work.
Mm-hmm.
And I suggested to her that she go to the toy store and get herself those little green army men.
Yeah.
Those little green army men, they were teeny tiny. They were an inch tall, maybe. And you could get them by the bag back then. You can get a whole bag of them. And I said, now you set up for yourself on either side of your computer where you're doing your work, you set up the army men. Just set them up. And they're going to help you get the work done. And I am proud to say she did it, and it worked.
That's awesome.
Awesome. And so my suggestion to you then is see about getting you some army men, or maybe if you can find a few, I don't know, medieval knights and
Like
put, and
yeah,
put around.
that's a good idea.
Get some knights.
I love that. I probably will go do that.
And let those, even the idea of medieval knights, they were out doing stuff. They were getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And that soldier energy is as protective as it is aggressive. We need some warrior energy in our masculine makeup to protect ourselves, but also to achieve what we want. And so I'm wondering if getting a few of these guys and place it around your environment might get something going.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Do you feel complete with this?
I really do. I think this was I didn't even put put it together that it repeated until we worked through it. Like that the whole story structure just like it just happened twice, just louder the second time. Yeah.
Louder the second time. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. Yeah, I feel like this was really good. Thank you so much. This is very neat.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for offering this great dream and the opportunity to talk about so many of these concepts in dream work. I appreciate it.